Now, have you seen, I've already done a review on this kit, so I'm busy on building it at the moment. I'll just quickly show you where I'm up to at the minute. I will do a build video on this, but I'll just show you where I'm up to at the moment. So this is built up nice and quickly. A couple of issues got to be careful of is these actuators here. They're a bit awkward to line up, but once they're in, they're in. Instructions are a little bit vague in that regard. But that's the cockpit built up with the 3D printed seat, which looks very good with the belts. Now, I just want to show you something what I've had to do. I've built one of these before, the Mark IIc, but the tropical version, and I had an issue when you fit the fuselage, you've got to pop it on and push it forward. What I was doing when I was pushing it forward to get it to sit behind the bulkhead, it was flexing. See if I can show you a bit better. It was flexing the bracing on the sidewall on the cockpit, sort of the tube. So I've cut a little bit of that out. If you can see there, I've taken a little bit of that out there, and I've cut there, just there. So there's a little bit flex in that, and I'll just show you what it gains you. Like I say, I'll be painting this and gluing it all together, and finish it in the white version, which looks pretty good. So what you're supposed to do is slot this over here. So you've got the dashboard there, or the instrument panel, not to catch the control column. So it slots down. It is an excellent fit. And push this forward a little bit. Now you see, when you haven't got that movement in the cockpit, that's further back, and it sits that side of like the bulkhead. You can't push it forward, so it sort of sits behind it a bit. So with that little bit of flexibility, I'll show you, it'll be much better once it's all glued together, the fuselage is glued together. But it clips on like that, and you see how it just pushes it forward just a little bit, and you don't get the bow that occurred in the sidewall. But I'm just what I'll be able to do once it's fitted in, I'll be able to like glue that back on the sidewall. But I'll show you further into the build. But that's just an important tip. If you're building this kit, just try and get a bit of flexibility in this back armoured plate. Otherwise it won't fit on that bit properly. The first one I built, I thought it was me, but no, the second one I've done that, it's just not right. So it's just a little bit of a nick there, and you can get a bit of movement in there. Right, so we'll crack on, get that primed and painted, and we'll come back, and I'll get it all glued together, and I'll show you a better idea of what I mean. Okay, so that's it primed. Nice grey primer on there for the cockpit tub and the sidewalls. What I'm going to do, it's basically, it says on the instructions like a dull aluminium or a dark silver, or just a dull silver. I was going to give it a coat of gloss black and then put AK's aluminium straight on, but I think I'm just going to put AK aluminium straight on now without putting the black on, because I don't want to make it too shiny. So I think straight out of the bottle it's thinned enough, so we'll pop some in the old airbrush, which is quite old now. Let's see what it looks like, how it sprays. Let's have a look. Right, so we're looking about 30 psi. Basically just want to get it in there, just get the dull aluminium, dull silver finish on there. It goes on lovely, this AK paint, very nice. Of course, there's a lot of detailed paintwork to go in there. For now, that's just the base coat. I'll do around the cockpit sides. This is interior green, but I'll just blast some of the silver on for now, then we'll mask off and do the green. That'll do for that. That's perfect. That AK stuff sprays really well. So I'll let that dry, then we'll mask off these bits here on the sidewalls, because they're the interior green. There's detailed paintwork to do interior green on some panels in here. Obviously control column, seat belts, all different colours. Then we'll give it some weather and calm it down, because it looks a bit blingy there at the minute. Right, so that's where we are at the minute with that one. Right, we've masked off the cockpit sides for the interior green. What I'm using for that is RAF grey green, Cockpit grey green by AK, and a bit of AK Real Colours high compatibility thinners. So I've got about 50-50 in the old airbrush, and let's just, it's about 25 psi. We'll just do this one first. So we'll just get some colour on that. So I quite like the high pressure for this, so it dries a little bit quicker. That'll do for that, and we'll do this one. Obviously I've left the instrument panel glued in. I left it in for just for a dimensional check, but I'll have to brush paint that black. And that'll do for that. For the back armour plate, I'll just brush paint that. But otherwise, that's the green on. Let's take the masking tape off just to see if it's been a success or a disaster. So we should still have the silver underneath. And we'll just pull these bits off. Grab my tweezers for that. Tamiya masking tape, by the way, as well. And there we go, nice straight edges, and we can continue doing the detail paintwork of the switches and dials, then start weathering it. And well, you've seen us take one set off, you don't need to see the other one. Right, then we'll crack on with the brush painting of the cockpit, and we'll carry on with it with weathering. Right, so here we have the completed cockpit. I didn't go mad with it, just the basic colours on the silver or the aluminium, the green for the armour plate, the belts which are all moulded in, a bit of sand colour, and some other details picked out. But it was a basic build, basic paint, basic wash, basic dry brush, picked out a few details, that's about it. For the fuselage, again, just the same, straight out of the kit. You can't really see much when this is together. This is the instrument panel, so that's just basically the transfer from the kit on the instrument panel. The sidewall detail done. Coat of matte varnish, coat of gloss varnish on the dials, as you can see the shine a little bit there. But basically when it's all together, you can barely see that much in the cockpit. The last Hurricane I did of theirs, I put the full Edward set inside the cockpit, the new instrument panel, seat belts and whatnot, but basically you can't see anything in it. So what comes with the kit is more than adequate, and we'll start gluing it together, get the fuselage together. Then I've got this little issue to sort out with the movement on there, and sort out that little cut there, which I can sort out once it's all together. So like I say, you need that flexibility, otherwise you're not going to get the fuselage down onto the wings. Right, we'll start by gluing this together, and then we'll mate it up to the wings, and we'll see how good a fit it is. So here we are with the wings mated up to the fuselage. It's a perfect fit from the fuselage to the wing. It really is excellent on this kit. As you can see, if I can get the light in there, I've rectified that the cockpit sort of framework, which I trimmed down, which I showed you before I built it, and that's now glued on the sidewall, and I've got a pretty nice fit, and we don't have the issue of it being warped by pushing the bulkhead forward. Otherwise, that's the build stage we're at the minute. This 3D printed part was a bit of an issue. It was about a mil too long, so I've had to trim a mil off it. Otherwise the fit is good there and there on both sides, but this might be an issue. The white line's basically just a scratch, and I've drawn a pen line across it to mark it. So we're going to prime it. I'll mask the cockpit up, we'll prime it, and we'll see if there's any seams to take care of. But otherwise, it really is it's a lovely kit, this. Right, let's get... Oh, before I go any further, I've just been to the Northern Model Show up in North Shields this morning. Obviously, I want to paint this white, so I've picked up a couple of whites. I've picked up the Tamiya, your standard white, but I've got the acrylic one, sorry, the lacquer one. I've not tried their lacquer stuff before. I do have the thinners for it, so I thought we'll have a go. This is their white lacquer paint. I don't know how thin it is. I've got the thinners for it, like I say. So we'll do a little demonstration. You and me, we'll see how this goes. I've never used it before. I've never used it before. You know, new territory for everybody. Let's see how it goes. Right, here we go. We're going to go with the white. And that's the colour we're going for. The Mark 2cc Hurricane. Right, so a white camouflage over grey. The white I've chosen, which I've never used before, is this. So this is the Tamiya lacquer paint. So we're going to have a go with that. And I've got my thinners as well. So we'll have a go together and see what it looks like. I'll just spray a little bit for now. Then obviously I'll have to move the camera, the phone, just so I can get in and do it properly. Right, so let's see what it looks like. Right, it looks quite thin, quite milky. I wonder if that's going to need thinner. Yeah, that's definitely lacquer. Right, so I'll put a bit of that on the airbrush. We'll see what it looks like. We'll see what it sprays like. I'm going straight in the cup there. No messing around. That might spray okay straight out the tub there. Let's see what that looks like. I'll just do the spinner first. We'll see how it sprays. Let's see what it's like. Right, that is very thin. Okay, we'll try and get a bit more on, see what it looks like. Maybe should have used a white undercoat. Right. Might need more than one coat. Right, I'll let that dry and we'll come back to it and we'll see what it looks like. I'm concerned that it's quite thin. I'll stir the jar. I did give it a good old shake, but I'll give it a stir as well. And we'll see if that comes back any better. Right, I'll just do a quick talk about this Tamiya paint. I've obviously put a base coat, well I put a coat of the of this stuff, the lacquer paint from Tamiya, on the Sea Hurricane. Now the section I've just done on that, I did film it, but I might not put it in because I don't think it came out very well. I think I messed it up. So I'll just give you a quick recap. So the Sea Hurricane, I bought 2 tins of white from the model show up in Tynemouth at last weekend. So I've got Tamiya X2 white, and I thought I'd have a go with their lacquer paint. I've never tried this before, so I had a blast with that. I'm going to reserve judgment because obviously spraying white on grey is probably not the best idea. So I sprayed that straight out of the tin because it looked thin enough, but it wasn't very good. It was very transparent. So obviously I stirred the paint in the tin, in the bottle, which you should have done to start with, I guess. So it's my problem, my fault. And it was much more, got a much better covering on. But it still went on a bit patchy. As you can see now, I have flattened this off a bit. I've gone over it with a little bit of 3M's wet and dry just to take the edge off it. It is patchy. I did get a bit of grain build up between the fuselage and the wings, which you can do if you don't get your paint mixture right or your air pressure right. So I'm going to put that down to me. I think I should have thinned it a lot more than I did. But I'll come back to that. I'll try some lacquer on a different model in the future. So I'm not going to give up on that. But I'm now just going to go over the model and pick out some panel detail with the X2 white, which I know works well and I'm familiar with. So I'm going to load up the airbrush and we'll get some. I quite like the faded effect I've got, but I'm going to go over this with the white. But I'm going to go over the panels where the panels wouldn't be scuffed and scratched, because obviously going to start building up a little bit weathering into this. Like I say, white's quite tricky to get right, but the surface detail you get with this Arma Hobby kit is quite good, so that's going to stand out. And I quite like just taking the edge off it with a bit of wet and dry, and it gives you that sort of raised detail. Like I say, we're going to have to figure out different ways to weather this aircraft in white. It's not the usual camouflage colour. But I'm going to load up the airbrush with that, get my thin ratios correct, and start of just airbrushing like on the panels, in the centre and things like that, and we'll see what it's like and try and get a bit more of a less patchy coverage. So I'll do that now and we'll come back in a second. Right, we're now back with the white that I've put on. I don't know if you can see on the light, it's a slight different sheen. So I've gone over with the Tamiya acrylic over the Tamiya lacquer paint, and I'm much happier with this finish. So in the middle of the panels it's a bit whiter, so it gives a nice faded appearance on the wing without going too far over the top. So I'm really quite happy the way that's melded in, and we're going to live with that. Like I say, white's going to be really hard to weather down, but I have moved on a bit. I have done the underneath, so I've gone with the sky rather than the light grey. I put the 2 black invasion stripes on. Spacing's not 100% right, but I'm going to live with it. These things were just quite hurriedly put on. So we're happy with the underneath. So now we're going to mask off and paint the nose panel, which is like probably the anti-glare. It's probably the original colour and they've just left it on so it doesn't blind the pilot. Or I think later on in this aircraft's life they did actually paint it white. So basically what I've done, I've got Tamiya masking tape and cut a very small bit off and just taped it on, following the curve as per the painting instructions at the behind the exhaust, in front of the exhaust. So now there's a couple of ways we can mask this, so I'll quickly show you. You can do it that way, then I put some more yellow masking tape down on the desk and I just cut it up into little sections. So it's like little squares like this, and you just sort of block it in carefully. As long as you don't go for what you just masked on. And you can just continue doing that. And you just fill in the bit where you don't want overspray, obviously. Put another bit there. Actually, I was going to show you another way of masking with Maskol, but I think we'll just stick with this. This seems to be working quite well. Pick up another bit of tape. Go over there because I don't want that to get any paint on. And a bit more up here. Now it's best, so we've got a little ridge there where the spinner would, in front of the spinner or behind the spinner, we'll try and push it in with the tweezers and run it around like that and then flatten it down. Make sure you don't go over the bit where you want to spray. And that's done okay. So I'll continue masking it all off, and we'll mask around here as well because I don't want any overspray on that. And then we'll get the grey and the green on, and all that's left to do is mask to paint the silver on the undercarriage doors and the cockpit floors that were. So I've already done the doors, so I'll flip them over and paint them silver on the inside. I've done a bit of airbrushing on there to darken it down a bit. So I've started doing weathering when I had some black paint and me airbrushed a little bit more weathering there. Right, so I'll continue to mask that and then we'll spray that and we'll come back, but it's come together quite nicely. Quite pleased with it so far. Right, now we've moved on to masking the camouflage bit on the nose, so and painting it. So what I've done, basically just, if you look at the instructions, it gives you an idea of how to mask it, where the colour needs to be. So using Tamiya masking tape, thin strips of that, follow the contour. I've painted the dark slate grey and then I've used Maskol. You can see this here's the Maskol. to mask off that and then paint the extra dark sea grey on it. So we're going to take it off now. It's been on about a week, so it's been on a while. I've been busy doing other things. So that's the mask all there, so I've used that. It's quite good for doing camouflage patterns, but it does have its limitations. So what I suggest is the best way to take it off is to brush it towards the paint that you've done, if that makes sense, rather than tearing it away from the paint. So if there's like a little lip, it should take that off. So we'll try and do it together. It's been on a week, so you see if I'm rolling it towards the edge there, just carefully doing it, and that should give us a reasonably decent demarcation. And it has. That's a pretty decent demarcation there. Sometimes you'll get like a bit of feather, and you can always touch it in with a brush, just to sort it out. But that's quite a nice line. So we'll do this bit now. Again, just brushing, just using the method of pushing it towards the edge of the paint to try and keep a nice demarcation line. And there we go, it's not too bad. Might need a little bit of work, but I'm going to weather it down anyway. And we'll take the masking tape off and see if we've got a nice straight line. Hopefully we have. And it's a success. Try that side. I see it's a little bit of dirt around the exhaust, so I do need to weather it down a bit more. Like I say, weathering's going to be really tricky with this being white. So there we go, we've got some nice demarcation lines there. It's just the ones to take off at the front, which I'll probably use my tweezers, which I can't find, so I'll just use my knife. And we'll lift the tape. I really could do it with my tweezers. God, I'm not prepared, am I? So we've got a little bit of overspray there, we'll soon get rid of that. But otherwise, that's worked out quite well. But we're going to weather it down with the rest of the model. Also, you might notice I've already put a transfer on the wing. Now these are really tricky because the raised detail, it's probably slightly overdone, but I prefer to have it than not. So it's quite difficult to get the transfer to settle down over it. It's done a pretty good job there. I'll try and zoom in a bit and we'll have a little explanation here. So the transfers, it sits down quite nicely. It's had a couple of coats of microsol, and then what happens, I've gone in with the knife and I cut ran the knife along the edges where the panel lines are and some of the rivets where it hasn't totally like sitting down. So you can see there it's not quite 100%. So I'll probably mark them with a knife again and go over with some more microsol, and that should adhere it totally to the wing, and it looks pretty good. The only issue is you do get a bit of white from underneath coming through, obviously the transfer tears. So we're going to have to go in with some paint and just touch that in. But it'll look okay. It looks okay there. And like I say, when it's weathered down, a bit of matte varnish, it's going to look spot on. So on this wing, I'll quickly show you how to do it. But otherwise, that's where we are at the minute. Looking good. I still have to paint the undercarriage silver, which, you know, I don't know why I'm putting transfers on when I haven't finished doing the paint work, but there you go. Sometimes you do things out of sync. Right, let's crack on and see how far we'll get with this thing. I'd like to get it finished shortly so we'll get the video loaded up for you. Thank you. Okay, so it's now a lovely Sunday morning, so I'm going to be popping in and out and doing the garden. So in the meantime, in between cutting the grass, trimming the hedges, doing the borders, etc., I'll show you how to get the transfer to sit down. Now the transfer sat down really nicely there, but obviously you can see that it has torn in a few places, so we're going to have to touch that in at a slightly later date. But what I'll show you is how to get the transfer to settle down. So on this side, I've got a couple of coats of gloss varnish on that. The transfer is getting some water on it. It's still a little bit wet. It is wet, I should say, and it hasn't come off the backing paper. There we go. So it's coming off the backing paper. So basically, we just line it up, match it with the other one as best we can. Put a bit more water on it so it'll slide a bit, because it's quite a tricky surface, because it's quite rivety. Just match it up with that one. That looks pretty good actually. Over that way a bit more, I think. Let's have a look. A bit more to the right. A bit more up. Let's see, just compare it with the other one, try and get a nice matched pair. And I think still a bit more to the right. You can just match it up with panel lines. So like on this one, I'm going to match it up off that corner there and that corner there. And I think will look pretty good. Yeah, we'll go with that. So what I want to do now is basically just squeeze the water out from underneath. You can see it's starting to sit over the rivet detail now. So basically just get a cotton bud and just roll it. Just try and squeeze the water out. You don't want to slide it about. There we go. Oh, that's moved a little bit. So not following my own advice. Move it up a smidge. Double check the placement. Got most of the water out from underneath. Again, try not to slide it. And we will let that dry. Right, I'll go do some garden work and I'll come back when that's dry and we'll move on to the next section. Oh, and by the way, I have done this bit here. I've just brush painted that. It looks a bit scruffy at the minute, so I'm going to give it another coat. Thin coats of like an aluminium paint. It's much easier than trying to mask off and paint it. But I'll show you how we bring that back to life. Another coat of aluminium on that. A little bit of a dry brush, an oil wash, and it'll be mint, as they say. Right, so we'll let that transfer dry, and I'll be back in about half an hour. Right, so that's half a hedge cut. Anyway, back to the transfer. As you can see, it's dried. It's settled down quite well, but obviously you can't live with that. So we're going to attempt to get it to settle down, and we're going to use microsol at the minute. So we're going to put a dab of that on. I always put it in this little holder because I'm sick of knocking them over. So a little brush, bit of microsol, and just apply it. Don't have to go too mad with it. And take away the excess. And we let that dry and we'll come back and we'll see what it looks like. Right, I'm back to the Hurricane. It might have just been a split second for you, but it's been a couple of weeks for me. These videos do take a while to build. I think I started this one in March. We are now in July. So as you can see, it takes a while to get these things done. But I'll run through where we are. So I've actually gone ahead and just finished all the transfers, put them all on. They've gone on no problem. On the roundels, the bits where the transfer had shown through on the white, basically just touched it in with the colour, sorted that out. The extra dark sea grey and the slate grey are on the nose cone there. The slate grey I've had to mix my own colour. I'm sure I couldn't find it. I've got one somewhere, I know I do, but I can't find it, so I've just basically mixed it together. The model then received a coat of gloss varnish. Now we've gone on to the weathering. Now I don't really want to kill this one because I really like the white look to it. So what I've been using, I'm actually halfway through the weathering process at the minute. I'm using Tamiya panel line at the minute, dark brown. So it's basically just dabbing a bit on, let it run into the seams and cleaning it off with white spirit and a cotton bud. So there you can see the underneath had it put on, but I haven't wiped it off yet. So I'll just give you a quick demonstration of that. So actually we'll do it back on here because I want to do a bit more on the ailerons. So I want to put a bit more accent the dark lines on the ailerons there. But what I'll do, I might do an oil wash as well and pick out some bits and bobs on that with my own oil wash. But if I just dab that in there, see that capillary action just takes it in. It doesn't matter if it's not very neat because you can take it off, like I say, with white spirit. There we go. We'll let that dry. And I'll take it off. I'll show you, like see on the nose cone here. I'll put a bit more on there. So once that's dry, I'll just show you how we can take the excess off, neaten it up, and we'll crack on with the weathering. Like I say, I'm not too far away from being finished, so I'll probably just plough on, get it done, and we'll come back and I'll go through a couple of weathering techniques that I've done on it. Basically, what I want to try and get is a contrast between the white panels. So I'm not wanting to kill it too much with the weathering. Then I'll come in with the airbrush and maybe on the centre of the panels, just put a white sort of shade in there of brilliant white, just to try and give a bit of contrast. and a bit of interest. I'll weather the nose down a bit. I'll put a few more streaks on, like exhaust streaks and bits and bobs. A bit of grubby hand marks, some scratches, some scuffs, and a bit of dry brushing, certainly on the undercarriage. And we should be done and good to go. I can't really see inside the cockpit there, can you? It's quite adequate. It's actually very, very good straight out of the box. So I'll zoom in there a bit and see if we can have a better look. But I might put some final pictures up at the end. Yeah, it's not very good. It's flashing too much. Right, I'll crack on, get it finished, then we'll come back and we'll run through it again and hopefully get this video uploaded as soon as possible. Try to get it done this weekend. Right, we've eventually come to the end of this model build. Basically just rushed through it at the end there. When I get it finished, when I get on with other stuff. So this is Arma Hobby's Seafire Mark 2C. I put a black background down because it's really difficult to see white on white. I've tried to take some pictures and they're not very good, but anyway. So this is the finished model. I've finished the weathering, coat of matte varnish. The canopy's gone on. I've used the supplied masks with it, which are very nice. Put the aerials on. Again, that's the underneath all finished. Coat of matte varnish. I think it's came out okay. It's quite tricky to try and get a nice white finish without killing it. Hopefully, I think by looking at the weathering, I think it's okay. It's not too bad. Probably could do with a little bit more exhaust staining on the model, but otherwise I think I'm going to live with that. I'm happy with that. Again, it's a great little kit. The only peril is just the wing to fuselage fit with the armor plate on the cockpit bulkhead that causes an issue, but I think I've shown you how to deal with that. Otherwise, highly recommended. That's the second one of these I've built. It's a lovely kit, very well detailed. Goes together quite nicely. I mean, look at the wing joint. You can't even see where the wing joins the fuselage. That's how good that is. This one came with the 3D printed exhausts and Hispano 20mm cannons. And the seat with the seat belts printed in, which I think you can just see there, which looks pretty good. Again, it's really struggling with white. The cockpit is standard. It's what comes with the kit, again, which is really well detailed. Like I said, the previous Edward one I did, not Edward, the other Arma Hobby one I did, this one here. This has got the full Edward kit in there, but you can't really see any difference between the two. So there's the two Hurricanes, all done and dusted. I'm going to do a little video on this particular version of the Hurricane, this particular one, which flew off a Royal Navy escort carrier, and it's an interesting story, and it's got Johnny Walker in it and all sorts. So I'll do a little 5-minute video on that, about this aircraft, the fleet carrier it flew, sorry, the escort carrier it flew off, not the big old singing, all dancing fleet carrier. It was off an escort carrier, which is basically a reconstituted merchant hull. But otherwise, there we go. I'll put some pictures at the end. I don't know how good they're going to be, because this is quite tricky to take a photograph of. That's why I'm showing as much as this as I can. Any questions, give us a shout. But these kits are highly recommended. I've pre-ordered the P39 as well from Arma Hobbies. Hopefully that should be here this week. We'll crack on with that one. Otherwise, there's the other Hurricane. So you can see the difference in the colours. They look really good. Really nice aircraft. I love the Hurricane. But there we go. That's it for today. Any questions, give us a shout. Any comments, give us a shout. Almost up for criticism. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in another video soon. Thank you very much. Goodbye.